Good day everybody, and welcome to a new build video for update 41. I've done a lot of testing on different builds and there is so many that you could choose from. And I would like to show you a few of them today. I think the changes to Magicka Sorcerer is very good, however there is a few things that I would like to see nerfed. In fact, I think this specific build that I'm going to show you first is a bit too strong. But it is the meta right now for Magicka Sorcerer, in my opinion. This is definitely the best way to play it. Especially for a duel. I just don't think you could possibly lose. If you're competent enough on the class, I don't think you could possibly lose in a 1v1 on this. The shields are that big. But let's get into the build, because I'm not sure if people have released a build video explaining how to get the most max Magicka out of a build. But anyway, the first set is obviously Ancient Grace. Self-explanatory again. It gives max Magicka on 3 pieces. Shock enchant on the front bar, simply due to the fact that they've buffed concussion, and it hits really hard now. And sharpened is still the best on the front bar. Back bar, I like to have Absorb Magicka enchantment on the back bar just for a little bit more sustain, and plus the magic damage that it does now can proc the new improved magical status effect, which is more sustain, which is always good, and defending trait. I always like to have defending on the back bar simply because you just can't go wrong, especially in open world. If it was a duel, I would probably go Infused Berserk enchant here, but I prefer open world, so I stick to defending. One thing I will say, this build I don't primarily use myself, because the situations that I get into in Cyrodiil, I need to play a little bit more tankier, but I will do another build video straight after this one explaining what I use in open world. This is just basically the meta build that's good for literally anybody who wants to play Max Orc. Mighty Tudor guys, light armor head in infused. This will give you the most max Magicka. Trainee infused again, heavy armor. You could go reinforced on this, but this is to get the most max Magicka out of the build as possible. So infused or heavy trainee on the chest. Then Mighty Tudor arm cops, medium armor, divines, so that you have 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. Alfiq, obvious choice, gives max Magicka. All infused. All of these are light armor. Sorry, all the smaller pieces are divines, and the bigger pieces are infused. Infused will give you ever so slightly more max Magicka over divines when you've got the Mage Mundus on. So go with infused on the big pieces and divines on the smaller pieces to min-max your build. Alfiq neck in Arcane. Try have everything golded out, because the way that max Magicka now is, it multiplies so well now, especially with all the different modifiers. Even just having like an extra 50. It could end up being like an extra 150, you know what I mean, which all adds up. So if you've got 3 gold pieces and it all gives you an extra 50 max Magicka, you could potentially be getting extra 500 max Magicka with all the modifiers in this build, you know, so it's well worth golding out your gear for this. Death Dealer's Feat. This should be Arcane.
Yes!
Where is it? Yeah, Arcane. I will say though, in a duel, if you are wanting a duel build, right, do not have Tudor on. Swap it for Swarm Mothers and Dommy House, and then have one Triune. The reason that you need one Triune is because if you do not, you will not have enough HP to get the maximum out of your ward sizes. I've done thorough testing on this even before it came live. You need at least one Triune piece on, if you do not have Tune on this build, to have enough HP to gain as much efficiency out of your ward sizes. That's only specific if you are dueling and you do not have Tune on. However, if you are not dueling and you are playing in open world, you need to have Tune on. You will not be tanky enough to survive all the pressure that's incoming. So if you've got Tune on, have Arcane on one piece jewellery, and obviously Ancient Grace ring. Now let's get into, this is where you get most of your max Magicka from. I don't know why ZeniMax has allowed this. I think that they should nerf this specifically. I think Magicka Sorcerer, the way that you can play it now, this specific build is too strong. No other build is too strong, just this specific build is too strong because of all the percentage modifiers for max Magicka. Yes, I understand that max stats is significantly weaker than max HP and weapon and spell damage, but the fact that you can just have nearly everything with just stacking max Magicka is a little bit too strong in my opinion. So hopefully they do nerf this, and I'll explain why. Now, what you need is inner light on the front bar, and then if you go to the back bar, you have Bound Aegis. The reason this is so strong is simply because you can now have an extra. The inner light gives 5% increased max Magicka, and it gives savagery and prophecy, right? That's on the front bar, and if you go to the Mage Guild passives, it gives you an extra 4% if max Magicka if you've got Ice Comet on the front bar. And Bound Aegis works through both bars. So theoretically you've got 8 there, plus 4 from the passive from Mage's Guild, so that's 12, and then you've got 5 here, so that's 17% extra max Magicka, right? And then they buffed one of our passives, the Expert Summoner. It increases it by 10%, right? So that's an extra 27% maximum Magicka that you're now getting. This is an unbelievable way to just concentrate max stats. It's very, very strong, and it needs toning down, in my opinion. Magicka Sorcerer, in this current iteration, this build has absolutely 0 weakness. It has no weakness whatsoever. It has damage, it has big shields, it has mobility, it has sustain, it has unbelievable healing, simply due to the fact that you've got Hardened Ward that now heals, right, from a percentage of maximum Magicka. Now, I am just going to show you in a second how much max Magicka you've got on this build when you've got Death Dealer's feet procced to its max. It is simply outrageous, right? So this is the front bar, crystal frags, self-explanatory, hardened ward, must have, crushing shock with the new status effect changes. This is absolutely phenomenal. Spam that to fuck. It is so strong now. Endless Fury, you could change it for something else because you've got so much damage now. You know, it is very interchangeable if you feel as if you want to change it for something else. Go right ahead and change it. Ice Comet, I genuinely think this is now best in slot because it gives max Magicka now. However, Overload is still ridiculously strong, like really strong, especially in a duel now with this build. It hits so astronomically hard. You know, it shouldn't hit that hard, and it gives resources back. You know, so Overload can't go wrong. If that's your baby to go to, please use Overload. I just like Ice Comet, and I do think that's now meta now. On the back bar, Haunt and Curse, self-explanatory, hits like a fucking truck now because of this build. Dampen Magic. Like I said, I have min-maxed max HP with this. It's insanely strong with this max mag build. If you don't want to use 2 wards, you can obviously change this for something else. But I do genuinely think 2 wards is best in slot now, personally. With how much max Magicka has been buffed. Degeneration, I think it's definitely... I genuinely think it's the best skill simply because it also gives max mag now. But it is very interchangeable if you really want to change it for Critical Surge, go right ahead. Streak, everybody knows this skill, self-explanatory. The best skill on Magicka Sorcerer, even with the buff to Hardened Ward. It is the best skill, don't take it off. Bound Aegis, like I said before, it works through both bars now, and it gives max mag. Do not take it off. And Life Giver. Far too good to give up. Especially now that max Magicka is... like you've got so much max Magicka, the heal that you get from this is especially the teammates, it's astronomical. It's far too good to give up. But like I say, I've only really used this a few times. I think it's a bit too strong, personally. Specifically for 1v1s, it's outrageous 1v1. You shouldn't really be losing, well, dying, should I say, on this build in a 1v1, especially if you're competent at Magicka Sorcerer. No matter what you're fighting against in a 1v1, you shouldn't really be dying with this build, personally anyway. It's so ridiculously strong. Also, make sure that you have every single passive in all your trees to min-max your build. Now, let's get into the champion points. Obvious choice, Arcane Supremacy, max Magicka. Self-explanatory, you know, gives max mag. Untamed Aggression. Now, the reason that I'm choosing Untamed Aggression over Fight and Finesse, 2 reasons. One, I don't have enough passives to get it, but the main reason is simply because a lot of people block now. And you have so much raw damage on this build that I just want to increase upon it. You know, like, there's very few targets that you cannot kill with this build, simply because of the raw damage that it has. If you have enough raw damage, blocking doesn't become that much of an issue anymore. Yes, it's annoying, especially if they're low HP and they're a vampire, etc. It can be annoying, but I prefer raw damage over critical damage on a Magicka Sorcerer personally. If I was playing a Nightblade, obviously that class favours critical damage, but I think on a Magicka Sorcerer you can't go wrong with raw damage, so stick to it. Master at Arms and Deadly Aim. I have no defense on this build simply because of how broken the defense is due to Max Magicka. I have seen people on the forums saying that Max Magicka stacking is an issue. It's not as big of an issue as they're making out, but I do agree somewhat. Only specific to this build, I don't think you should be able to stack Inner Light in Bound Aegis. I think you shouldn't be able to do that. But anyway, let's go on to the red tree. Bastion, self-explanatory, increases the size of your shields. Do not take it off. Shield Master, definitely use this if you struggle with sustain, especially if you use them 2 wards, because unfortunately they still cost a fortune. Still don't know why, but hey ho, we've got a buff, not going to complain. Pain's Refuge, also far too good to give up, do not take it off. And Relentlessness. This is phenomenal. Like I've said in all my previous builds, I would only really use this now in a 1v1. Open world on this build, I would probably swap it for Survival Instincts, simply because of the fact that wards are that big now, you can afford to lose the 10% damage reduction. And in a duel, you don't really need to dodge roll as much, you can basically just face tank with the ward sizes now. So I'd rather just have this on for a duel, but open world, swap it for Survival Instincts, and please make sure that you have all the passives. Again, I am not full CP, I do not have all the passives. And for the green CP, just choose anything you want, it makes absolutely no difference to the build whatsoever. Now, unbuffed, as you can see, I have 62,400 maximum Magicka. Okay, with this build. That's completely unbuffed. That's without Death Dealers procced. Now, let's just see how big on the front bar specifically, how much Max Magicka you can get. Oh! Hold on, do not attack that one because it actually gives you all the trial buffs, which I forgot. So let's get away from that. I don't want all the trial buffs, because the trial buffs gives you more Max Magicka, which I don't want. So let's quickly leave the house. And I will show you how much Max Magicka you can actually get with this build. With all the trial buffs, I actually don't know what the Max Magicka is. But I will show you now how much Max Mag you can actually get with this. It's actually outrageous how much Max Mag you can actually get with this. Let's find an enemy. Surely there must be an enemy here somewhere. Here we are. Oh, I need to unsummon Azandar. Right. So please be patient. I'm just going to get up to max stats. Again, I genuinely think this does deserve a nerf. It's actually ridiculous how much max magic you can get with this. I will tell you now, you can get roughly about 17.8k hard mode with this build. Or is it? I think that's only with Swarm Mothers and Dummy House. You can get like a 17.8k hard mode, and I think it's about 17k with Tune on. It's like actually ridiculous. But anyway, if we have a look at the max stats now, you've got nearly 66,000 max Magicka. And if you have Swarm House and Zombie House, you can get up to close to 69,000 maximum Magicka. That is actually stupidity. It needs a nerf, like you keep reiterating. The damage is stupid. I mean, that's look at the tooltips that I've got, and I don't even have Major Sorcery on. You know, like, this is actually ridiculous. But this is definitely the meta build for ESO in the current iteration. And for the next build, I will show you what I personally use for open world. It's very, very strong open world. Personally, I do think it's a little bit stronger than this open world because you are so unbelievably tanky. Yes, you don't have as much damage, but if you struggle with survivability in open world, the next build is definitely for you, because critical damage now, due to the change in chill status effect, is very, very prevalent. So I'm going to show you a build that will counter that, and it's very tanky and it has a lot of damage still. So yeah, this is my first build for update 41 for Magicka Sorcerer. And also, don't forget the Mage Mundus. You don't actually need Stage 3 Vampire on this actually. I just like to have it because it's so strong. But you can choose to take this off if you struggle with sustain. And I am a Breton on this. You can go high elf if you want even more damage, but I like the sustain. So yes, this is my build, first build for the update 41, and I will now show you the second build, which I personally use in open world for update 41. Hello everybody, this is my personal build for update 41, specifically for open world for Magicka Sorcerer. I've done a lot of testing so far, and personally, with the changes to status effects, the changes to certain passives with Magicka Sorcerer, like HP being lower, we're getting an increase to max Magicka and max stamina. This is the most complementary build for Magicka Sorcerer that I've used. It has everything. It has good sustain, it has damage, it's tanky, even when shields come down, and it complements playing in a team very well. So, let's get into it. There's a set in here that people have forgotten about, but I will tell you specifically why I'm using this, and I'll give you many reasons as to why I genuinely now think it's best in slot. But let's get into it. Again, Ancient Grace, literally far too good to give up on any build. That stacking Max Magicka, don't take Ancient Grace off. It's the same as the previous build that I've just shown you. The absolute best set to use. Sharpened, charged weapon on the front bar, absorb Magicka and champion on the back bar in defending. Tudor, light armor in Impenetrable. I'll explain why I'm using Impenetrable in a second. Trainee in Reinforced. The reason that I'm not going for such high Max Magicka on this build is simply because you've still got enough damage to kill people on this due to the changes to Magicka Sorcerer in the Max Magicka increase and the heal of hard mode. You are now tanky enough not to use any defense CP at all, especially on this build. Outnumbered, you are very tanky, so don't worry about the damage on this build, it's very good. Mighty Tudor Arm Corps, so you've got light there, heavy there, and medium on the shoulder. Now, the next set that I'm about to show you is a long forgotten set that I think now is best in slot for outnumbered if you struggle to survive. This is the best set for Magicka Sorcerer in my opinion now. Impregnable. This set gives you everything that you need on Magicka Sorcerer in its current iteration in update 41. Now there's a few reasons for this, right? The main reason is simply because of how often the chilled status effect is on you, basically, and it got a buff. Critical damage in update 41 is actually absurd, especially on Nightblades. Everyone's saying they didn't get a buff. Yes, they got a buff, because they can now chuck on Sea Serpent's Coil and get an extra 10% damage just for nothing. And if they're a ganker, they will absolutely obliterate. They'll just go straight through your shields, even with the buffed ward. This completely mitigates this problem, and you don't need to proc it, right? You don't even need to proc the set. And the second reason is it gives max health, which we'd lost due to the Expert Summoner passive losing the max HP, so you gain the max HP back on this. Max Stamina, you literally can't go wrong, because the Expert Summoner now gives you an extra 10% max Magicka, so it complements it very well. And it gives max Magicka. You can't go wrong with max mag. It's the it's the greatest thing a mag soldier can have now. So it gives you every single stat that you possibly need. Right? Now, a lot of people would go, well, Adam, why don't you use Rally Cry? Now, let me explain why you don't use Rally Cry anymore. You don't need to use Vigor, okay? Vigor was the best way to proc Rally Cry, right? But it's not necessary to use Vigor anymore. You get more healing by going more max Magicka and using Hardened Ward. You know, there's no reason to use Vigor anymore. So, Vigor is a heal over time, which means that it has a higher chance to proc a heal, to critically strike. You don't really have that with a burst heal on Hardened Ward. so you don't have a good chance to proc Rally Cry. However, you could use Vigor still if you wanted, then I would probably use Rally Cry. However, I think that's not the best way to go. I think Impregnable is absolutely best in slot now. It gives everything you want and there's no proc condition. Okay, so definitely go with Impreg. I've got one well fitted on this just to help a little bit in a world, because there's so many immobilizations and stuns now. So I like to have one well fitted on this. And I have Death Dealer's Feet, an Ancient Grace on the jewellery with one Impreg. All arcane on this. I will say, you absolutely do not need Vampire on this. You don't need it at all. You are very tanky with this build. I mean, I've got 3,600 critical resistance, you know. On a Breton with the Mage Mundus, with the Ghastly Eyeball Drink. Bear in mind this is completely unbuffed as well, so I've got 51, we'll say 51 and a half, so I've got 51,500 max Magicka for argument's sake, plus an extra 3,000 from Death Dealers, so you're probably looking at 54,500 max Magicka on this build, fully buffed. Really strong. Now, let's get into the champion points. Again, it's exactly the same as what the previous build was that I've just shown you. It's so strong. It has everything. There's no weakness to it. The only thing I would say, it's if you have Vampire on, which I do have now, it's a little bit detrimental on sustain, but you could easily mitigate that by changing healing mode to Dark Deal. You know, it's easily mitigated now. Max Sorcerer has so many options. Whatever you feel like playing now on a Magicka Sorcerer will work. This is just my preference. This is what I've been using. Personally, what I've found over the years is that copying and pasting builds is not the best way to play a class, personally. Yes, there is the absolute unbelievable meta like the previous build that I've showed you that will work flawlessly on every single player, but to be absolutely remarkable at a class you have to build your own build to suit all the little intricacies of how you play ESO. You need to build around that. Copy and paste builds, unless you use the first build that I showed you, it won't work as well as what you see in the videos, because you need to cater to your play style. Like for example, me and Malcolm, we have drastically different builds. That's simply because he builds around his own strengths on a Magicka Sorcerer. It's the same for Blocky. He plays around his own strengths on a Magicka Sorcerer. That's why we have different builds to cater to our play style. You know, copy and paste builds, whilst it gives you a good idea of what to use, it's not the best way to learn. I would very much recommend learning your own strengths and weaknesses on each class and building around it. Do you struggle with being tanky? Then put more resistances on. Do you struggle with damage because your rotation's not as good? Then put more damage on. Do you struggle with sustain? Then chuck on the Adrenaline Wonderstone. And I would highly recommend doing that now when Magicka Sorcerer is at its peak, because there's a lot of flexibility with Magicka Sorcerer now. Like, you could easily change Impreg for trials, for example. You could easily swap it for Bright Throats. You could easily swap it for Swift. You know, like it's so easy now to chuck on any build of your choosing to play to your strengths, or to help with your weaknesses now, because you're still gonna get an insane amount of max Magicka because of the buff to Magicka Sorcerer, and we've got a burst heal now. So please don't, obviously I want you to watch the videos and I hope you enjoy them, but don't hesitate to experiment now on a Magicka Sorcerer especially. I mean, you can tell how much experimenting I've been doing. I've got all these different passives and sets, you know, and I've still not done testing things, you know. So far, this is the best build that I've got, you know. I actually have been testing the old build with trials and using Harness Magicka again. It's very viable. I might actually change to that at one point, you know. Every build now is viable on a Magicka Sorcerer. But like I said, the first build that I showed you is, if you're brand new to Magicka Sorcerer, I would definitely recommend the first build that I've showed you, because it's so astronomically broken in terms of power that you can't go wrong with it. It has everything. This is just my catered to self build, you know, because the only thing in PvP that was killing me was Nightblade gankers, ping spikes, and being completely overwhelmed by like 15 players, like chasing me for ages. Nothing else was killing us, like literally nothing. And I'm currently working on a build that is going to, well, this Impreg build basically prevents the ganking from killing us, the Nightblades. So I've already mitigated that, but I'm also now looking at mitigating being overwhelmed, because it's down to sustain, specifically both Magicka and Stamina. When you have so many players on you with status effects and immobilizations, you quickly run out of resources. So I'm going to tweak the build a little bit to cater to myself, to be even more unkillable. But anyway, this is my catered to build for open world, for update 41, and I will show you some gameplay now with the build, and I hope you enjoy it.